Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is Monday morning, 6 o'clock here in the morning, October the 4th, and I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and the chat room is open if anybody would like to sit in there. I wanted to continue talking about anger, and we were doing a pretest from a website that I think is very helpful for people who may be having a little bit of issues controlling their anger or managing their anger and not sure how to go about it. I think this website is really awesome. They do have lots and lots of good information here on this website about anger. Right now we're just covering what is anger, what is it and where does it come from, and that sort of thing. And do we have problems with anger? So that's what I wanted to look at, was the pretest that sort of says how much do we really know about anger, right? So I'll give you the link here, and I'll pop that into the chat as well. That's www.angerresources.com, ANGERESOURCES, angerresources.com. And it's a great website. Dave Decker and Michael Obsatz are the two gentlemen who created this website and put their information on there. They're both, one is a practicing psychiatrist, and I think the other one is too, Michael Obsatz. So you can go and check that out and read about them. We did that last week. I was talking about them a little bit and read through their stuff, their information here, bio and whatnot on their website. But it's great stuff, and I'm really learning a lot. I thought I knew a little bit more about anger than I really do, just because doing this pretest sort of shows me what, because it's true or false. And it's 25 questions, and I actually did them ahead of time and to see how many I would get right. And there was quite a few that I didn't have, that I got wrong. So I thought I knew more about anger than I really do. So it's kind of interesting. And so we're about, we're on question 19, and there's a few more to go. So we'll finish this up hopefully today. But some of the questions are just very interesting because I thought I had the answer to it, and the correct answer, and I didn't. So it's really interesting to see just what they had to say about it. But a lot of people deal with anger, and whether you're abused or not, many people experience anger, and anger is a natural response. It's a natural occurring response, right? So we have to learn how to handle it so we don't hurt people or hurt ourselves. That's the whole issue. You know what I mean? It's like I would get angry when I was in my 20s and 30s. I would get so angry that I would just quit jobs. I was inevitably hurt myself because I didn't want to hurt anybody else. When I was younger and a teenager, I would quite often hurt other people with my anger, but and even a small child, I was hurtful to other people because I was so angry. But now, then when I got older, I realized, I didn't want to hurt anybody, so I would basically be self-sabotaging all the time, right? Because of my anger, I really couldn't handle my own anger, and something made me mad. I would think these horrible thoughts, and I'd be like, well, I don't want to hurt anybody, so I'd end up quitting jobs and leaving places, that I really liked the job and didn't want to leave, but couldn't figure out how to deal with the anger, as far as what somebody had said or done or didn't know how to confront people, had a lot of problems with dealing with the whole issues of anger, because in my home, anger meant violence. So when I grew up, anger was, there was always a form of violence following it, or, whether it would be verbal abuse or physical abuse or whatever, you name it. So I didn't really understand how to properly handle anger, right? And so as an adult, I had a real hard time, because I certainly didn't want to hurt anybody, and I was like, well, the only way I knew how to deal with anger was to lash out at somebody. And so I just sort of kept it all inward, and it just sort of, I was on a self-destruct, basically, because it was killing me, you know what I mean? So I've, over the years have learned slowly how to deal with this stuff, but I wish that I would have gotten some help a long, long time ago. So I hope that everyone who's listening will, reach out and get some help if you're having problems with this, and, just know there's help out there and there's help available, and, we deserve to have a better life, and so does everybody else around us if we're causing them to be uncomfortable because of our behavior, right? I mean, it's the same as my parents, they the abuse that they put on their children and each other was wrong. So if we, as survivors of child abuse, go and do the same thing because of what happened to us, we're no better than them. You know, if we're going to hurt people because of what happened to us, and we're just going to make people miserable in our lives and hurt other people, and use the excuse of, oh, well, I was abused as a child, and, you know, I just don't, this is just how I deal with things. Well, we're no better, right? I mean, we have to really be accountable for our own behavior, and that our parents and my case, were my abusers, and they should have been very accountable for their behavior, and they weren't. And they still aren't, you know, when my mom passed away, but my dad, well, she was never accountable for her behavior, so she never took responsibility for it. And she was, you know, one of the most angry people I've ever met in my entire lifetime. And my dad, you know, he's an old man now, almost 90 years old, and he's living in some sort of little fantasy world, you know, and he's happy, so that's good. But the thing is when he was a younger man, he was a very angry man. And he never took accountability for, you know, or responsibility for his actions, right? So he put that, my parents put that on me and never took responsibility for it. So if I do that to somebody else, I'm just as guilty, and I'm just as far as I'm concerned, just as bad of a person, because I won't get control of my own behaviors, right? Because they should have done that, and then we would not have been abused. So there you go. So we have to be accountable for our own behaviors, and like if we're lashing out at people and because we're angry and we can't figure it out, and we're, you know, stressing out and putting our garbage on other people, we're no better than the people that abused us, is what I'm trying to make a point here. So that's why it's so important to get help, right, and not push that cycle of abuse off on somebody else, because that's how it continues on. It just keeps on rolling, right? And we got to stop the cycle of abuse, right? It's so important. So I think we left off on question. Well, let's look at question 18. It says, if people, this is all true or false, right? It says, if people are angry, they should always express it directly to the person they're angry with. And we went through this one. It's false. It says, although sharing your anger with someone directly is one option, talking it out with another person who is not involved with your anger and working it out within yourself and then letting it go are others. So there's more than one option. You don't have to express it directly to the person you're angry with. I actually thought that was true. So, see, I didn't know. I wasn't thinking there was other options. I just thought, yeah, you should express it to the person that you're angry with. But I guess there's other ways of handling it that might be better and more proactive, you know. Question number 19. Angry people tend to want to control what is happening around them. True or false? The answer is true. It says, anger often arises when we feel that things around us are out of control. A desire to exert control over people and situations around us is an important part of why we get angry and how we stay angry. And this is especially true with explosive or abusive anger, when we are, in fact, often able to control what happens around us on a short-term basis. For instance, example, if we blow up, people will do what we want for a while. So, you know, if we blow up and we take it that far to that extreme, then the people that we're directing that to might do what we want for a little bit, right? That's just not right, and that's what a lot of abusive parents do to their kids. You know, they get angry and they just go all out on them, and and then of course the kids toe the line for a little while because they're thinking, man, I guess just to save my life here, I better toe the line for a bit. But the thing is it doesn't help. It doesn't. I just think that there's better ways to handle this sort of stuff, right? There's definitely better ways. It says long term, however, control, disrespect, and abuse destroy relationships and drive people away. And isn't that the truth? You know, people that are abusive, nobody really wants to be around them. And you can't blame people. Who wants to be around somebody who's just abusive all the time, even if they're not directing it at you, but they're just directing it generally at the world, just abusive people kicking things around and breaking things and or verbally battering everything they can think of, right? That kind of negativity is hard to be around, and it's not fun to be around, and that's how I grew up, and that's how a lot of my friends and I spent our early, young years, into my 20s and stuff, and I was just so used to that kind of behavior, but I got tired of it. I got extremely tired of it, and my parents continued it on all the way through till my mom passed away, right? They never did stop their behavior. Their behavior was just, they were just getting too old to be too physically violent, but they could have still killed each other. But the thing is their meanness and their anger, they never did stop that behavior, and I was so sick and tired of it. I left the country. I was like, man, I got to move to Canada to get away from these people, just to guarantee that they will not be able to contact me. So I left the country to get away from them, and it was the best thing I ever did. You know what I mean? Because it allowed me to get my own space, to get away from that negativity, right? And it just made it so that they could not be codependent on me anymore, and I couldn't be codependent with them. I had to get out and get my own life, and of course it did force me to recognize a lot of my behaviors, and it did force me to have to start working on it, but it took me so long, and I wish I would have reached out and got help, because 11 years later, I was still sitting on the couch thinking about self-injuring and committing suicide, suicidal thoughts, right? So this is the thing. It's something that sometimes people just need help, and they should reach out and get it. And I really wish that I would have. And I'm glad that I'm still here, because it's I could have gone the other way, right? And I think I just didn't trust counselors. I didn't trust therapy. I didn't trust anybody with my information, because I thought, no, they'll just use it to hurt me, because that's what I've been brainwashed to believe, right? That's what we were told all our lives, and you just hear that, so it becomes part of you, right? So I didn't trust anybody, period, right? So that's the whole thing. And then I thought most of my friends who I thought I could trust, I couldn't trust. So you see, that's the whole reason why a lot of people don't reach out and get help, is because so many people have just completely been untrustworthy, right? And the shame belongs to them, not to me. So I'm so glad that I've figured that out. Shame on those people. And and even to friends who would dare to screw somebody over that they know is hurting and really needs somebody in their life. You know what I mean? Shame on those people. That's where the shame belongs. So I would just suggest, like, if you really don't have a lot of trust or faith in the system, one really cool thing to do is group support, online group support. That's what I did, because I thought, hey, I can leave anytime, and if I don't like it and I'm uncomfortable, I can just log out and never go back, right? And it does allow you to talk to people, other survivors who are on the same road, on the same journey. They might be at different stages and different points in their healing journey, but the fact is they know what it's like to be suffering, and they know what it's like to be going through this stuff. And quite often, you can find somebody who's gone through something similar, right? And if not, even just having somebody validate your abuse, sometimes helps. So even group support is a really cool way to go. So if you're out there and you're thinking, I don't want to reach out, I don't want to get help from a therapist or counselor, I don't trust those people, group support is awesome, because it's other survivors like you and me who are really working through their healing journey. Many of them don't trust counselors and therapists either, And so, the group support, online group support, I love it, because it's like, yeah, there's safety in numbers, and for me, it's, it's just the whole idea that I'm always on a fight or flight issue, and I have to feel safe enough to stay. See, it's real easy for me to walk away. It's real easy for me to, the door always has to be very close for me, right? Even in my adult life, so I'm trying to learn how to stick it out, how to stay, how to relax and calm down, and realize that, hey, not everybody's out to hurt me, and that I can have a good life, right? So, but this was all ingrained in me from the time I was an infant, right? So it's hard to get over. And so, group support, I really like that. So whether you have a group in your town or your city where you live, like the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, the Morris Center program, ASCA, sometimes they have chapters in different cities, right? And if we had a chapter here, I would be signing up for it. But they have online support as well, online group support. So I would say just make sure you reach out and get some help, right? That's all. It's very important to get help, right? So question 20, some people just deserve to be yelled at because of the way they act. This is true or false. We're supposed to answer true or false. Some people just deserve to be yelled at because of the way they act. And most people would say true, right? False. That's false. No one deserves to be shamed, punished, or abused. It will not work to effectively change their behavior over time, and it creates the possibility that you will end up experiencing negative consequences for yourself or in the relationship as a result. So isn't that just true? I mean, but most people would answer true. Because, they would say, yeah, some people just deserve to be yelled at. Because that's how people are. They're abusive, right? No one deserves to be yelled at for the way they act, There's different ways to handle it. We can talk about things. That's the whole issue within families, All of a sudden, before you know it, everybody's raising their voice and everybody's getting angry and pissed off, and then comes the name calling, and then there might be followed by some physical abuse right within a family because they just can't talk normally and decently to each other. That was my family, right? Any conversation could go extremely bad, and it usually did. So we all avoided each other. We all sat in different rooms. We didn't eat at the same kitchen table. My mom would make dinner, and we'd all eat separately. We'd all eat our food. We'd grab our food and go, right? Nobody wanted to be in the same room with anybody because it generally got extremely violent, which was really stupid because my parents did that. That was not the kids' fault, That's ridiculous that we had to grow up like that, but that was my parents' stupidity for being as stupid and ignorant as they really were, right? To bring up children like that, right? They needed counseling, and they were told to get court-ordered counseling, or they'd lose the kids. And the court should have removed us, but they didn't, and that was stupid. But that's what do you do? That was 1967. Back in those days, it was perfectly okay to beat the crap out of your wife and kids, right? They were starting to figure it out that it was wrong, but they still hadn't quite got a grip and a clue on it. Nowadays, we would have been yanked out of that home extremely fast. They would have made sure that my parents went to their counseling, right? But see, back then, nobody was really all that concerned about it, right? So, it's pretty sad. So that's the whole issue. No one deserves to be shamed or punished or abused. And I like what he says here. That's just so true. No one. So let's all get a grip on that. No one deserves to be shamed, punished, or abused. Because discipline, there's ways to handle discipline. It does not have to be in the form of violence. Because what you do is you create a situation that you cannot go back from. When you lash out at someone, when you lash out at another person, whether it's an adult or a child, when you lash out in that manner, you've created something that you cannot take back, which is violence. Right. So if that's the way you're going to handle your anger and or disciplinary actions, well, all that child learns is that, okay, when I get mad, I have to get violent. The way to handle it is to get violent. So then, all it does is set up violence for that child or for that other adult, right? Instead of saying, we need to work through this. We can do this, and it can be nonviolent. It doesn't have to be violent. See, that's why there's violence in the world. If everybody would wake up and smell the coffee, it's just the fact that because too many people are violent, it just keeps getting passed on and passed on and passed on. And so we have all these violent offenders out here and violent people in our lives, people who go off and do crazy things and domestic and spousal abuse, right? It's just absolutely ridiculous. And no one deserves to be treated like that, right? And it says it will not work to effectively change their behavior over time. And it creates the possibility that you will end up experiencing negative consequences for yourself or in the relationship as a result. And isn't that the truth? This kind of stuff, even yelling at somebody is not cool. And so often you see people yelling at people. And that's one thing I won't tolerate now because I grew up like that, being yelled at continually. And called names and spit on and just horrible things. And I tell you, I won't put up with it now. Somebody yells at me, I just look at them and I'm like, you can talk to me. When you can talk to me like a decent human being, you can talk to me. Otherwise, don't talk to me. Because I refuse to get into a yelling match with somebody because they want to be abusive. You know what I mean? Like, forget it. And when my dad was here for a year, my dad stayed with me for a year because he needed a place to stay and nobody else would take him. And that's the truth. My sister refused to take him in because she had him for 5 years and she almost went crazy. And my brother said, no way, absolutely not. He's not coming to stay with me. So we're the only siblings left. We're really the only family left. So I had to take him in for a year, and I was okay with it. I thought, well, we can probably learn to grow together a bit because we never had, and our relationship was very strained. And I just thought, well, this might be a good opportunity as adults to try to work through some of the crap and the garbage that he put on us, and maybe we could learn to grow a bit, right? And sure enough, he's just as sick as he ever was because he's schizophrenic, right? And so, and he's not only that, but he's not a nice man. There's other words for it, but that's the whole issue, right? We're trying not to do that. He's just not a nice man. He's just rude and he's evil. And so here he comes for a year to live with me, driving me absolutely up the wall, trying to start arguments with me every night. And I'd be like, I am not arguing with you. You know what I mean? You're going to have to go away because I'm not going back to that same garbage that you put on me for the whole time that I knew you until I left the country when I was 30. Forget it. You know what I mean? And so he tried for a year to drive me absolutely crazy. And finally when he moved out, I was like, oh, yes, hallelujah, thank you. Because, my God, he almost drove me absolutely crazy. You know what I mean? But this is how somebody, you know, who's very sick can make somebody else feel. They can make the other person sick and bring them down big time. He could have had me fighting with him every night. I mean, we did blow up a few times and have a few arguments because I was just so tired of listening to his garbage. I've been listening to it since I was born, and I thought, man, you know, I'm an adult now. This is my house, right? I don't have to put up with that. So I definitely let him know that, you know, this was my space and that he had no right to come in here and be abusive like he was when he was a younger man and I was a kid. He was not going to come and start that again. And I said, man, I am like in my 40s. I am a grown woman, and I can ask you to leave right now. So you better straighten up because I'm letting you stay here out of the goodness of my own heart. And you can, if you're going to be this way and continue your abusive behavior, there's the door. You can leave. And I mean, I'm serious. Like, I do not allow people to treat me with any disrespect whatsoever because that's ridiculous. No one deserves to be treated like that. Right? And so I have to do the same thing on the other end. I can't go around treating other people with disrespect either. See, it doesn't just work one way, right? I know a lot of people think that it does. My dad does. He thinks he should be allowed to tell you whatever he wants and that then you should come back and kiss his ass. I mean, excuse my language, but that's true, right? That's what he thinks because he's a sick man, right? He's just a jerk. And so, you know, well, he's sick. He's mentally ill, right? And the whole thing is he's never been a nice man. He couldn't be a nice man if he wanted to be, but he fakes a whole lot of people out. A lot of people that know him think he's the most wonderful man in the whole world, but they don't know what happened. They don't know how he treated his wife, and they don't know how he treated his children. So, you know, that's the whole issue. Abusers are very manipulative, and they are, especially people who are mentally ill, like who have these schizophrenia, paranoia type things, you know, they are very manipulative, and they can fake out a whole lot of people, right? See, I know what's going on inside of his heart, so I know what he does when he's around other people, like his family. He doesn't treat them right at all, and then when he's around his friends, he treats them like gold, right? He's very manipulative, and so people love him. They think he's great. Well, good for him. You know, he's managed to fake out a whole lot of people. But the thing is I don't allow him to treat me like with any disrespect anymore. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. So, because no one deserves that. But then again, I have to watch my behavior too and not treat other people disrespectfully, see? So we have to, you know, we have to watch what we're doing. We can't just go around just thinking, oh, everybody's putting their garbage on me, but then go and do that to somebody else. We all have to be accountable and responsible for our behavior, right? So the question number 21 says, the way that you think about a person or situation has a lot to do with how angry you end up getting. Is that true or false? The way that you think about a person or situation has a lot to do with how angry you end up getting. True. It says your thoughts are and what you are saying to yourself at any given moment are a powerful part of escalating yourself and becoming more tense and angry, or calming yourself down and finding effective ways to handle difficult and frustrating situations. So that's just so true, isn't it? And I mean, this is a perfect example, like when my dad was staying here, because of what I know about him and because of what he did to me in the past, you know, it was real easy for me to fly off the handle at him, you know what I mean? And anytime he wanted to talk, I was very tense because I was like, I just know that he's going to say something to me that's going to be so hurtful. You know, I was already preparing for it, you know what I mean? So then when he did, I would just lose it. I'd be like, go to your room. I'd make him go away because I didn't want to say anything hurtful. And I was like, you don't even want to know what's going on in my mind right now. You don't even want to know what would come out of my mouth if I let it come out. Go to your room. Go away, you know, because I already have all that background of and these thoughts about him. See, that's the whole issue, and that's why anger can really escalate very quickly when it's a situation where you already have a certain thought pattern about something or a situation. You already feel a certain way about something, and then all of a sudden anger starts, you know, sort of coming up to a head. Anger is a natural response, right? So see, I'm still angry about the way that my dad treated me, extremely angry about what he did to my mother. And so it's hard for me to sit in the same room with him unless he's going to behave himself, and I know that. Then, I'm almost on guard all the time. So then when he says anything that it just seems remotely abusive, I'm all over him, like flies on honey or whatever, flies on whatever you want to say, right? I mean, I don't give him a chance to get abusive anymore because I'm just so tired of it. So, this whole that year I really had to learn how to kind of relax and not get too angry, right? Because otherwise I would have just been angry the whole time because he was living with me for a year. And so some of it I had to let slide, but then some of it I just couldn't, you know what I mean? I was just like, oh no, some of that's just ridiculous because he was being abusive to me. So I literally had to tell him to go away. I was like, you're going to have to leave the room, go away, because I don't want to say to you what I'm going to say, and so you better back off. Because he's an abusive man, right? And he just loves to get under your skin. He loves to push and push until he can get you to say hateful things, right? That's what he did to us our whole lives, right? And he's just a bad person, right? Unfortunately. But, I can't help his behavior, but I can help mine. I can't change his behavior, but I can definitely have control over my own behavior, and I should. See? So this is where this all plays in, right? We have to be very, very careful what we're doing, and otherwise we're the abuser. We may as well just say, hey, I'm the abuser, right? And I don't want to be like my parents. I don't want to be like that, or these other people out here who abuse people, becoming violent and angry and hurting people, right? But we do, anger is natural, so that's all right. But we can learn how to control it and how to use it, to benefit the situation instead of making it worse, right? So I think that's very important. So it says your thoughts and what you're saying at any given moment are a powerful part of escalating yourself and becoming more tense and angry, or calming yourself down and finding effective ways to handle difficult and frustrating situations. So I like that. Question number 22, families who yell at each other a lot are emotionally closer because they're more willing to express their true feelings with one another. And true or false? Families who yell at each other a lot are emotionally closer because they're more willing to express their true feelings with one another. That's false. So it says, in fact, yelling and other forms of verbal abuse push people away and destroy trust. So often the anger serves as a cover and hides other thoughts and feelings that, if they were actually shared, could increase the potential for trust, caring, and intimacy in your relationships. Isn't that true? I know all about that. Yeah, that's just right. So instead of, people like my parents, my mom would say stuff like, well, we'd all try to get my mom to leave, right? We'd be like, Mom, you should leave Dad. You should just leave him. We'll go with you, or you don't even have to take us. Just go, right? This was the main consensus from all of her children, right? And she would not go. She would say stuff like, well, I can't leave him, and we'd be like, why not? And so, he's just mean and he's rude and he's always been abusive towards you and us, right? So why don't you just get out? And she'd be like, well, because, we've been married this long. She'd always try to have some excuse, right? We'd be like, well, we hate him, so we hate his guts, you know what I mean? But she'd be like, oh, don't hate your dad, you know what I mean? He's just sick, he's just sick. So I knew my mom loved my dad, right? Even though they never showed 1 ounce of love towards each other the whole time they were married. And I'm serious about that. They never hugged, they never held hands, they never sat together. They never, none of that, right? So that's the thing. See, underneath that hatred was love. So that's why it's like a cover, this anger, this verbal abuse, and this distrust. It serves as a cover, and it hides other thoughts and feelings that, if they were actually shared, could increase the potential for trust and caring and intimacy in your relationships. So had my parents been able to get past their anger issues and hatred, they could have learned to really grow and love each other, see, and love their children, which they couldn't love us because they hated each other. So that's really sad because, they hated what each other brought into the world, right? So that's the problem. And that's sad, man. So we do not want to go that way, right? So if you're experiencing any, we have about a minute left, so thanks everybody for tuning in. You can check this out too at www.angerresources.com, and there's all kinds of great information on here about anger and anger management, which we're going to continue looking at. So we'll take a look at this tomorrow morning, and starting the show a little early tomorrow. I got a bunch of stuff I got to be doing tomorrow early. So the show's going to be on at 5 o'clock a.m. Tomorrow, Mountain Standard Time. So have a great day, everybody. Keep reaching out. Keep looking for that hope, that help. You know, you do deserve it. You do deserve to have a good life. We have to be responsible, and we have to make that first step. We have to reach out first, right? If we don't reach out first and take that first step, it's just not going to happen, right? We have to do it. So make sure you get help. You know, call a crisis line if you have to. You know, do something. You know, get help somehow, some way. Right? Don't suffer in silence and suffer alone. That's so sad. Right? So take care, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.